Myron Stern and his face. But otherwise, you're good to go.
Great. So today I hope to talk a little bit about working cross-functionally, and before we get into that, a little bit about who the heck is this person. So as Juliet said, I've been doing this for a long time, but she didn't mention that I started off my career, I trained as a designer. My degree was in design. And then from design, that didn't quite work for me. It wasn't my passion. I moved into being kind of a hybrid designer developer. And from there, I naturally kind of segued between that background in design and development into product management. And that's where I thrive and what I really love. And you know, having led design, development, and product management teams, I hope I can provide you with a little bit of insight. But what we're going to focus on today is going to be the following thing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about teams, what makes great teams, the traits and the dysfunctions of teams that make them either good or bad, what the individual roles are and what makes them successful between those three roles I talked about I had some experience in, how to best work together, some techniques maybe for being able to set the stage for being able to work well together, and then again, any time to answer questions. So if there is something where you're like, okay, I can't wait till the end, this is too pressing, feel free to shout out and I can try and address it in line, but otherwise, hopefully we'll have some time at the end here to go through it. So a little bit about teams. Teams naturally, you know, I think we know what teams are, intuit them, but according to Google, if we just look it up, it's 2 or more people working together, right? A team of researchers. But also according to Google, according to their research and what makes really effective teams, they're highly interdependent. It's not just a hierarchy based on what a business says. Like, okay, these people are all in the same group, so they're on a team. Teams need to work together. They need to rely on each other actually to get work done. So that's an important distinction here. We're talking about team units where we're actually working together towards a common goal. So as it's happening, I think you're experiencing this right now because you've been thrust together and you're working towards a common goal. You're going to be going through certain life cycle stages, and there are different distinctions at each point. So the first stage, this is a Tuckman stages, it's known as. It's been around since the 60s, named after, I believe it's Bruce Tuckman. So the first stage in this is forming. And the distinction here is you've just come together and you don't really know each other well, so everybody's on their best behavior. They're being really polite. They might not be super vulnerable. They might not be electing to share how they feel. They might not be really keen on telling someone that they don't agree with them. And as you go through this stage, the next natural stage is going to be the storming phase, or I like to think of it kind of as the toddler stage in teams. It's really healthy because you're being able to understand conflict and have healthy debate and get through and understand like how you can actually discuss and talk about important, difficult topics, which then gets to norming. That's where you start to set those standards and practices and begin working towards a common goal and get some structure before you actually get to that phase, which is going to be performing, where everything is going on all cylinders and everybody knows their roles and you're excited about working together. You've got a truncated timeline here with Cherry on Tech, so hopefully some understanding of this and some willingness to work towards those later stages will help. But then there's the last stage that's often ignored, which is adjourning, and this is where you have an opportunity to look back and reflect on everything that you've done, what you would do better, what you really did great, celebrate your successes. And then you can part ways happily and move on to the next thing, taking the learnings that you've had from this structure. So as we talk about this and think about like what makes really great teams, what are the traits of them, there is a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team that talks about like what are the things that teams have difficulty with initially. What are the things that might be dysfunctions that are getting in the way of them doing good work with each other. So the first one is absence of trust. And so what this means is like, I don't know if I can share my opinion. I don't know if I can share how I'm feeling. Like, I don't trust other people. It's not psychologically safe for me to be able to be vulnerable. And the cure to this is being vulnerable, having open and honest communication. It's not necessarily going into this next piece, which builds on top of it, which is conflict. So it's a fear of conflict is the dysfunction, which it sounds counterintuitive, but here we're talking about like healthy constructive conflict, being able to not only be vulnerable, but also to be able to openly and honestly express true opinions and have meaningful debate. And you know, uh, foundationally, this piece then leads to the next one, which is lack of commitment. So you may have heard of Amazon's disagree and commit philosophy as part of their leadership principles. Here we're talking about, hey, we've got conflict, we're able to disagree, and then once we've made a decision, we need to be able to communicate it effectively. We need to commit. We need to know which members of the team, what their roles are to be able to get to that commitment and to achieve that universal outcome. So from there, that building on top of it, the next piece is, okay, we know the roles. How are we keeping each other accountable? How do we have clear goals? How do we set expectations that we can actually hit? And then from there, the last piece is, okay, how do we align these personal goals, these roles with the team goals and the team needs? And then how do we celebrate that? How do we celebrate that success? And also with results, how do we know what to measure? And then, hey, we've got a great team. But this is old. So what else do we know? Well, there are other companies that have done research into this. Google's done research with their team. They've got a research project called Project Aristotle. They've got one called Project Oxygen. And they've got similar things: psychological safety and impact and meaning and structure and clarity and dependability. But that's just Google. Well, Google's got a friend, and Microsoft, and team purpose and collective identity and awareness and inclusion and trust and vulnerability and constructive tension. And you don't have to remember all of them because they all look alike, right? They're all very similar. They've got foundationally similar things that you should be looking to practice as you're building out your team, being able to have trust and vulnerability and psychological safety and lean into that. It's counterintuitive, but when you share how you're feeling, how things make you feel, what you're observing, other people are naturally inclined to do that as well, and it builds that trust ecosystem. Having a shared purpose and meaning, understanding why you're working together, what it is you're looking to achieve, what the goals and the vision are, being able to live into your commitments, be trustable and dependable to get the things done that are expected of you, having clarity and structure around what you're doing, and then again, focusing on that impact or results, having ways to measure it, knowing how to celebrate it, and knowing how to align towards those common goals together. So foundationally, that's a team. This is a good team, hopefully. And we can move on to what some of those individual functions look like. And again, this is at a super high level. So at the end, feel free to mine for conflict and tell me how I'm wrong and what you think is different in your experience or how you're looking at things. So the first I'm going to start with is product manager. And why does a product manager exist? Well, they exist, in my opinion, in my experience, to be this conduit between the needs of the market and users and the goals of the business, while also being a kind of servant and shepherd to internal teams of design and development and also marketing and others, to be able to share that context of, hey, here are the user needs, here's what the business goals are, and like how do we actually work together to create solutions to these problems that we're finding out in the marketplace. How do we make something that's going to be great, that everything works and the team internally is going to be happy and on board for it. For a developer, they're going to be measured on whether or not they're building great software. So there are a lot of things: availability, quality, reliability, performance, scalability, et cetera, that they're measured on. But also, is this going to be on time and on budget? Is it meeting internal standards? Is it also going to be solving those user and business problems? So we don't want to build solutions that are going to cost more money to run than they actually are going to be generating, if we're looking at it from if the goal is to generate revenue. But again, they're there to write great code. And then the designers are there to create these delightful, engaging solutions that are hopefully going to be aesthetically beautiful and also going to be habit forming for users. They're going to love them. They're going to be sticky. They're going to come back to it. The design is going to be effective. And then again, there are going to be systems there that are going to be repeated. There's going to be a language that is going to be developed. And, all of these things are going to be interconnected. So With these basic, high-level definitions done, like how do we actually go about working together? So when you're thinking about solving problems, there are two main ways of looking at creating solutions in technology for a market. And a lot of this stuff might be redundant with things that you've learned already, but you can either work forward from the problem or you can work backward from the solution. So when you're working forward from the problem, you want to go out and you identify, hey, here are users and here's problems that exist, and we need to start ideating on different ways we can solve those problems. The other way, and this is similar also to the way that Amazon works when they're taking and presenting their solutions, is you work backwards from the solution. You think, okay, we've released this. How has this changed the world? Like, who are the users that are using this? What is the impact that it has? What is the press release going to look like? What are the things that need to have taken place for this to have been successful? So with this going back and forth and each role on the team being able to look at this through their own lens, they each have their own piece of responsibility. And the way generally this looks is the product team is going to be responsible for the viability of the product. And there are different ways to describe this triangle. It's not unique to me, but the viability of the product is going to be, can we actually find users to use it? Is it going to make a viable business, or is it going to be able to actually solve the goals that we have as an organization? Will we find enough people? Is the problem big enough? Are they willing to pay for it? Will they adopt it? Will they do what's needed? And that's the viability of the business side of things. On the development side, that blue circle, is it feasible? Can we technically even do this? If we say, hey, it would be really great if we could put everybody on the moon, but if we don't have rockets or a way to do that, it's not going to be technically feasible. So we need to think about different ways to solve whatever the problem is. And then the last is going to be that desirable piece. Do people want to use this? We could solve the problem. We could do everything that is necessary, but if our solution is clunky and inelegant and isn't doing what is needed, then it's going to be problematic. And that will, any one of these not being fully done will cause a problem. So when we think about those and use this as a kind of lens for being able to look at how we work together, I think it's a useful tool. So going in and taking a look at, hey, I'm a product manager and I'm working with a designer. What are the needs that we each have? So again, product wants something that's viable. So they want to know, hey, is the user being taken care of? Are these designs actually validated? Has design and UX done whatever kind of research is necessary to know, hey, this is going to be a usable product that solves our users' needs in a way that's going to be meaningful. I'm going to need guidance on some of the best ways to actually go about doing things with users. And I'm going to need to know, hey, where are we at with these specific things? Because there are going to be components that are going to be time bound, or how quickly can we actually deliver to the users a certain amount of value. On the design side, what I need from product is I need to know, hey, why are we doing this work? And this is common from product, why are we doing this? Why now? What are the priorities? What are the what is the vision of this product? What are we trying to achieve at a high level? And what are the requirements? What are the constraints that I have to work in? So those are going to be common. You'll see that from product. Why are we prioritizing this? Why now? And what's driving this? What are the users' needs that you're seeing? What are the market needs? What are the business goals? When you take then a designer working with a developer, design is going to be looking for technical guidance, right? Hey, what can we achieve? What can't we achieve? Are there certain libraries or component frameworks or things that we're using that we should be thinking about when we're doing our design, because it'll make your life easier? If you're adopting an off-the-shelf design system, I shouldn't be building components from scratch. I should be leveraging that and extending them. I'd like continuous review, and I'd like to be able to see things while they're in flight, both have to share early with you design so I can get that guidance and hear a bit of that feasibility from you. But also, as you're implementing designs, I would like to be able to see them so I can provide my feedback when I see them in a more of a production environment. On the development side, I need to have detailed specifications of what's being built, because oftentimes I'm not a designer at all. I don't have any insight into what the heck it is you want me to build. I'm going to try my best, but if I don't know how things are supposed to flow from screen to screen, if I don't know what interactions are supposed to look like, if I don't know what the systems are in place, if you've got tokens or a design library system or, you know, some component system of your own. I need to know that, and I need to have good handoffs, good red lines, whatever it is to have that communication go well. I also need to get feedback early and often on the things that I'm implementing to know, oh, is this color correct? I guessed. I don't know how to use Figma or InVision or Sketch to be able to look at these things. So please let me know that this is right. And then for anything that's going to be an asset coming over to me, like again, in the handoff, make sure that you've got it exported or easily exportable, have it defined, etc., so that I can actually build this and it doesn't add to cognitive load for me or make my life more difficult or make me make, you know, easy mistakes. So then the developer and the product manager, again, like product is going to need a high quality code product. They're going to need continuous updates. They're going to need technical guidance on what can and can't be done and what trade-offs look like. When we're solving a problem, we might come and say like, oh, this is a great way to do it. I was working with design and they said that this is the perfect way for users. And then you go to the engineering team and they'll say, well, we can do that, but it's going to take a year and a ton of resources. And the conversation shouldn't end there. It should be, but here's some things that we can do to solve the problem in a different and interesting way. So what do those trade-offs look like from both cost and time perspective, technology, internal resources, et cetera? Give me some estimates on what the amount of effort is going to be, what your appetite is for actually solving these problems. And let's talk that through so that we can prioritize in a way that's actually taking into account the cost and the effort and is able to use that against the impact, right? Like when you're looking at, okay, what's the effort versus impact? Like we need to know that. And if we're making guesses, it's going to be problematic for everyone. On the development side, again, it's why are we doing this? What exactly specifically are we doing? How will we know if we've done it correctly? What are the priorities? Like what are the jobs the user's trying to do? What is the pain? What are the business goals? Like all of that. What is the status of you know, these larger initiatives? These are all things that are important to developers that they need to get. And oftentimes it just gets stuck with either a story or a requirement, but in the real world, they want to know like, why am I building this? Who am I building it for? And also the status of, did users adopt this? Do people like the work that I've done? I don't know what's going on. Like, did we achieve goals? It can't just become a feature factory where you're churning out things but don't have context, don't feel like you're a part of the bigger picture. So with that, you know, hopefully I've, you know, and again at a real high level, and I've rushed through this, so I think we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. I think the things that for the stage that I kind of perceive that you're at, and I think you're doing a lot of them, the tools and strategies that I've seen work really well are a lot around being able to align that shared purpose and set up the norms for communication. So being able to come up with what is our mission, what is our vision, what are the values that we have as an organization, or in this case as one of these teams, as a pod, as a squad. And if you go to a company and they don't have these things, you don't have to wait for them to get built, because oftentimes you might go to a startup or a small organization or be at a big, huge company where the particular vertical you're in, they might not have a defined mission or vision. They might just kind of be operating by the seat of their pants, or it might be in a closet somewhere. So the next best thing to build is a grassroots team charter and working agreements among the people on the team. And what this looks like is, why are we coming into work? Like, why are we doing this? Like, and what do we hope to gain individually? And what do we hope to do to elevate the team as individuals? And what are the things that we don't want to do? Very similar to the, you know, the product is, the product isn't. The team is, the team isn't. These are things that we don't do. These are teams that we do. What is the strategy and what is the roadmap for the work that we're doing right now? So looking at a roadmap as a way to loosely align strategy and goals with time, like having that is going to be helpful, because it helps you all to say, okay, as an engineer, I'm looking to make great code. As a designer, I'm looking to make these like really delightful experiences. As a product person, I'm looking to do these things for the business and for the users. And then if you can say, how do we align that all to the strategy? And when you go to a large organization, they might be doing that through OKRs or some sort of management by objectives, or having like specific KPIs you need to hit. But being able to align those based on something that's meaningful to the team is going to be really important. Another thing is, and this is one that kind of is difficult, especially as you're new, is being able to really set what is the priority right now. Like, what are we looking to achieve? And this is one that sits heavily with product. Like, how do we go through and take that effort impact or RICE score or weighted scoring matrix or whatever you ultimately will be using at that organization, and use it to build a trusted system of prioritization that allows everybody to come together and look at it and not say, well, geez, I think something else is more important because I feel like it's important, and being able to actually take those feelings and articulate them in some trusted and shared data-driven way. So you can actually say, here are all the things that we think are priorities. If you've got something you think is really important, let's use this as a way to kind of lens and focus that so that we can have a shared list of priorities and we can understand and have that conversation. And another one that's important is personas, or at least an understanding of who are we building this for and why? What are the jobs that they're trying to do? What are the pains that they have? What are the things that drive the user's success? And having a shared language around that, I often see it in the real world. It might live in marketing and sales as segmentation or targeting. It might live with design or a UX team as actual user personas. There might be some other archetype that lives somewhere else, but it rarely gets filtered down to the developers in a meaningful way. That's the first kind of leg that gets cut off of that stool. And it really does a disservice to the team. But not having a shared understanding of why you're doing the work and who you're coming in and what problems you're looking to solve and putting a face to it, I think does a disservice to everybody. So I've really quickly rattled through as much of this as I could. I'm going to pause here, and I can do whatever kind of questions and answers. And I don't know if there's a specific format or you just want to shout them out. I'm happy to do it in any way, and I can actually stop sharing so that we can talk more face to face. So let me